Hello everyone, welcome to Imprint Knowledge Solutions. Today what we're going to do is that we're going to discuss UPSC General Studies Paper 1, and I'm Varun Kular, your teacher, and I'm going to be talking about the part on culture first, right? The total weightage for GS1 paper 2018 was 35 marks for culture. Just to have an idea about how the previous year comparisons has been there. So we have 2013 in which two questions were asked. 14, it was asked for 40 marks, then 15 at 40 marks again. Last 2 years it was asked for 25 marks and 35 marks again this year. So they have increased the weightage of culture this year. Understand when you talk about culture, we typically overlap it with ancient and medieval India. Right? Okay. So let's look at the first question. And the first question is assess the importance of the accounts of Chinese Arab travelers in the reconstruction of Indian history. Now, typically, if you think about it, where has this question come from? You might remember there was a question in UPSC prelims. I think it was question number 73 or something. It was on, which foreign traveler talked about diamond and diamond mines in India, and the answer was Francois Tavernier, right? And from that, we were thinking that maybe a question will come in the mains as well, and so it has come. And there is a chapter in the new themes book, right, on ancient India, and it does talk about various travelers and what did they see in India, right? In case you have read that chapter, I am sure you should be able to attempt this question. It's not a difficult question to attempt. That is a source from this. If you want to talk about what are the Chinese and the Indian Arab travelers, we have Fahen, Hyun Xiang, Aita Singh, and we have Arab travelers like Al-Masudi, Al-Biruni, Ibn Tuta, and Abdul Razak, right? And we can actually segment the answer into political, cultural, economic, and social accounts of these travelers if you want to. If you not, maybe you can just write in a flow as well about just naming them and just writing about them. You can also talk about you can maybe make a map of the areas about which these accounts are discussed from. But the problem with these accounts are obviously that they exaggerate sometimes. And they sometimes are written to please the king. For example, Hyun Xiang, right? Okay, so let's start, right? When we start the answer, you can talk about that apart from material remains, coins, inscriptions, literary sources, right? Accounts by foreign travelers has been a source for immense reconstruction, right? And immense importance for the reconstruction of Indian history. And there have been various travelers, and there have been even before that Megasthenes and other travelers, right? And a certain portion of Indian history is definitely reconstructed from those. Now, you should maybe talk about which era they came for. So Fahen typically came in 399 to 415 AD, right? And Hyun Xiang, he came 629 to 645 AD. Right. Then we have Aita Singh is not mentioned here, but he came in 672 AD. Then Al-Sulaiman and Al-Biruni, Al-Masudi, they came. Al-Masudi came in 967 AD. Right, and Al-Sulaiman came in 850. Right, Al-Biruni came in 1018, right, and obviously he came with Mahmud of Ghazni. Then we have Ibn Tuta, who lived during the times of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and Abdul Razak, who gave us a very, very detailed description of the city of Vijayanagar, right, in the 15th century. And this is mentioned in the NCRT as well. So this is there in the NCRT. Right. So just to go through the various facets they talked about, Fahen, typically talked about the fact that the Gupta administration was liberal, right, and it talks about that it enjoyed economic prosperity. The people enjoyed, economic prosperity, and the burden of tax was not heavy. Then Hyun Seang praised Emperor Harsha a lot, and typically talked about the fact that he was so generous. And Harsha was one of my favorites during the time of my childhood when I was going through Indian history. And I used to find it so amazing that he used to spend 3/4 his income for religious purposes and give all his material possessions away at Prague during the Kumbh Mela. Ibn Battuta obviously talks about the Kohli system, and Abdul Razak gave us a detailed idea about the Vijayanagar Empire. Right, so that's there. Besides this, there are other writers as well. We have Al-Sulaiman and Al-Masudi. They wrote in detail about the Rashtrakutas and the Chalukyas of the Deccan. And Rashtrakutas was seen, kings were mentioned as most powerful by them. All right, and Al-Biruni wrote a book called Kitab-ul-Hind or Tariq-e-Hind, and that's a very, very famous book. Right, he talks about all the social evils of child marriage, polygamy, sati, that was there. That widow marriage prohibition was prevalent, and the attitude of purity and pollution was very common. All right, and that Indian society was a degenerate state, and that was something that Al-Biruni did talk about. Right. Fahim, wrote a book called Fuq Ki, just to have an idea, right? If you can mention this key, right? And he basically mentions the social religious, right? And he talks about the fact that untouchability was prevalent, and Chandala stays at the outskirts of the towns, and talks about the fact that people were mainly vegetarians. Right, and Hyun Seang talked about, Hyun Seang also gave a very detailed description in Nalanda, and he wrote about Chalukyan system, and typically he said that the people of Deccan were addicted to learning. He saw Ashoka stupas in Bengal also, and wrote about the social status of Vaishyas and Shudras. Right, besides talking about Parda system, and there was no Parda system, that's what he said, and he said there was a caste system as well. Right, Al-Biruni, as I've already mentioned, right, talks about that India was in a degenerate state, right, at that time, and maybe that's the reason he gave that. That's the reason that Mahmud of Ghazni was able to consecutively win so many battles against Indians. Right, Ibn Battuta discusses the fact that there was still the practice of sati, right, and Hyun Seang also talks about this. So that tells you that practice of sati started maybe during the phase. Hyun Seang, though obviously we have other sources in which the practice of sati is there in the Gupta period as well, and Ibn Battuta mentions the fact that there's sati again here. Okay, and Fahim right talked about Buddhism, obviously that it was divided into 18 sects. It does talk about Shaivism as well. That's a very popular faith. Right, Hyun Seang does talk about again Buddhism in detail, and he says that Brahmanism, Buddhism, and Jainism are the three popular religions in India. Al-Biruni obviously discusses in Kitab-ul-Hind the philosophy, the festivals, and customs of India. And this is mentioned in the NCERT in case you're interested to read in detail. So in detail, you can go through this. Right. Now, obviously, all of them have talked about that India's economic and trade conditions were extremely good. Fahim mentions that medium of exchange was shells, kauri, and copper powder, churni. Right, and Hyun Seang also mentions that there are a lot of Indian fruits and vegetables which are exported and all, and does talk about the quality of Indian pearls and ivory. Right, and that there is obviously trade between on the east coast as well on the west coast. Ibn Battuta again mentions the great trade across the Malabar, where ships from Persia and China comes. Abdul Razak obviously left a vivid account of the shipping trade. So now the problem obviously is that despite all their accounts, right, we need inscriptions and coins to justify the fact whatever they're saying. Because Hyun Seang, gave a lot of favor for Buddhism. He exaggerated in his biasness towards the king. He didn't never mention that Harsha had lost to the Chalukyan king Pulitation too. So these accounts are helpful, but definitely not the most important sources of history, but yes, they help in the reconstruction of history. So we should take this with a pinch of salt. Right. So this was question number one. All right. Thank you so much for going through this video.